Hey everybody, it's Justin from Bittner Built, and I've done a lot of laser engraver review videos, and so I get a lot of emails all the time where people are asking me, which one should I buy? I'm not in the process of telling you which one you should buy because you might have completely different needs than another person. I, for one, almost never use the rotary inside these laser engravers. It's just not really in the type of projects that I like to do. But other people, that is what they do all the time. So we might have differing opinions then on what is the best laser for us because of the types of projects we do. So what I thought I would do in this video is take two of the top-rated diode lasers, the Wecreat Vision and the xTool S1. I wanted to do a head-to-head with these because comparing these will be very good in educating you what you should be looking for. These are very similar machines and also very different machines. They have all of the bells and whistles that a top-tier machine in that category would have. So, you know, whether you decide to buy one of these two machines or you're looking at something else, at least you'll be able to look at the criteria that I review here to figure out maybe what's most important to you in your buying process. So let's get to the head-to-head today on Bittner Built. All right, so this head-to-head, I'm going to try and move through things as quick as possible, but it is a really long video specifically for the tests that I'm going to do. I want to be as thorough as possible with those. So I have all the chapter markers down below and stuff, in the time codes in the description, so you can jump around if you want to. I also have a report card that I'm going to have go through everything, so you can even jump to the end and see all my little stats and stuff if that's your thing. The video is not sponsored, but I am an affiliate of both companies, so both, not one or the other. So if you purchase any of their stuff through my links down below, I get a small commission, which is nice. That helps the channel. Thank you very much. But since I'm an affiliate of both, it's not one or the other. Like, I'm giving you the honest feedback on the tests that I'm doing. So I'm giving you data. And if that data happens to be bad, blame the data. Don't blame me. Maximum material size is related to how large of a piece of material you can get in the machine, not to how large it can engrave. This is important in case you're putting in a large thing like a cabinet door. You're doing a small engraving on it, but you want to be able to fit in as large of a piece of material as possible. On the xTool S1, you are able to fit 24 by 15.5. On the Wecreat, it's 19.25 by 12.5. Rather than rely on the stated working area numbers, I placed a sheet of craft paper on each machine's bed. I made an X as large as the machine could possibly make, and then I measured the X to determine what the working size area was. The S1 produced a 19.5 by 11.5 inch workspace, and the Vision produced a 16 by 11 inch workspace. That means that you have an additional 3.5 inches in width and 1/2 inch in height. The xTool S1 is capable of engraving on 1.65 inch tall material in its standard configuration. If you buy the optional riser base right here for $199, you're now able to engrave upon items that are 5.25 inches tall. This is a must-have purchase. In my opinion, if you're buying this machine, you should get the riser base. As that is the case, I'm going to factor that $199 into all of our financial equations at the end of the video, because anything that's must-have, we should be counting that in the price. One of the unique features of the Wecreat Vision is that it has a built-in riser base that auto focuses. So it auto raises and lowers to determine the height of material and then automatically engrave at the correct height. This is able to engrave on material that is 5.5 inches tall, so it is 1/4 inch taller than what you could get with the S1 with the riser. So obviously this wins this category, but I do want to point out something that I do ding it a 0.4. So it still wins, but I'm not giving it a 5, I'm giving it a 4. A high annoyance for me is that every single time I do an engraving, I must autofocus every single time. So this is something where I would love for Wecreat to add in a use previous height button. Because let's say I'm doing batch processing. Let's say I'm engraving pencils and I need to engrave 100 pencils and I'm doing them 10 at a time in here on a jig. The height is going to be the same every single time. But when I put in my 10 next pencils and I close this lid, it will not let me engrave without hitting that focus button again and waiting 20 seconds for this to check it out. It'll engrave, take it out, put new stuff in. Again, I have to wait 20 seconds again while it does it. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're doing this again and again and again, it becomes an annoyance. I should just be able to click a button that says, use the same height as last time, and continue on. So hopefully that's a software thing. Hopefully Vision can get that type of upgrade in the meantime. It would make me a lot happier and take it up to a 5 definitely. Both machines offer auto-on exterior connected air assists. Both machines offer an interior connected chuck rotary system. Both machines operate at 600 MMS. The xTool has a conveyor system that can be utilized with the riser base that I have installed here. The Vision just announced as part of its announcements last week that it was getting a conveyor system that it sits on. So you would remove the bottom plate and sit it on top of this conveyor system. The length to which any of these machines, these and any others, are concerned is technically whatever you want it to be. The rail systems themselves might have some limitations, but even when I was using my P2 to make a parade float recently, I added some boxes at the end just to continue feeding super long material out. The dimension that's important is the width dimension. So when we're looking at the xTool S1, it is 18.5 inches wide of material that it can feed all the way through on the conveyor system. And on the Vision, it is 14.9 inches wide. And again, both, it can be crazy long material. Both machines have connections for Wi-Fi as well as USB. Let's look at the powering capabilities of these machines. On the xTool S1, there is a 10 watt, 20 watt, 40 watt, and a 2 watt infrared module. This is for plastics, metals, glass, stuff like that. If you want, you can purchase, let's say, the 20 watt model in this series, and if you ever feel that you want to upgrade to the 40, you just buy this module. Or if you want the infrared module, you just buy this module. They're very simple to swap out. So you would remove the cable housing on the side here and a hose, and then it is just 2 screws on the top. You then can lift off the module and place in the new one. Reinsert the hose, reinsert the wire harness, and the 2 screws in the top. For the Wecreat, as of last week, they had a 20 watt laser. That's all it was. But last week they did make announcements for pre-orders. They did come out with a 40 watt model, and they came out with a 2 watt infrared module. So everything that this does, with the exception of the 10 watt. But I contacted my rep with the company, and they said the 20 watt and the 40 watt are completely separate machines. You cannot buy the 20 and upgrade it to the 40. The IR module is usable in either one, however, because it is a module that just clicks in. So you now have a lot more functionality with this, but they are separate machines, so it's buy one or the other. For safety, I only recommend and review lasers at this point that are Class 1 enclosed lasers. I will not touch a open gantry laser anymore. I've mentioned this in other videos now. I truly believe that you must have a enclosed laser for it to be safe. So spend the money and get one that has an enclosure. The Wecreat is a Class 1 laser enclosure, so you do not have to wear goggles when using this laser. It has a laser-proof glass lid, and if you lift the lid during processing, it will immediately cut the laser and stop the process, which is very important in case a child or somebody came over and lifted it so that they're not exposed to the radiation inside. On the xTool S1, we have the exact same safety features, which are it is a Class 1 enclosure, and it also will auto cut off if you lift the lid during production. If you use the riser base, it's still a class 1 laser unless you are using the auto conveyor feeder where you have to leave this open. Then obviously you have room for the laser light to escape, at which point they've provided you with goggles, and I am very happy that they included goggles that produce the protection rating on there. Every single laser has a wavelength that the laser operates on, and it is listed on a sticker on your machine. Your safety goggles must match that wavelength because there are many different wavelengths that can be used, and so you might be using safety glasses. If they don't correlate, it's not doing anything for you. So these are the correct ones for this one, so that is cool. In addition to vision safety, there are some extra things that the xTool S1 has in safety, and I love safety stuff. So first off, we have fire detection. There are 5 bubbles in here, and they are to detect if there's active flame during the laser engraving process. So if the wood's starting to flame up and char, where it could cause a fire, it will cut power to the laser and stop the process. Hopefully what that will do is then allow that fire to die down and go out. That is something that happens frequently with me because I test these machines at lots of different settings, so I know fires can easily happen. Now, if an active flame is detected by those sensors after this laser is cut off, then you have the optional xTool fire suppression system. This is, I believe, $189. But it does come for free with a lot of different packages. It has 4 CO2 cartridges inside, and so what will happen is if it detects that active flame, it will puncture those CO2 cartridges. It will flood this space with CO2 gas, putting out the fire. This is absolutely excellent. So in recap, the Vision has vision protection and auto off functionality. The S1 has vision protection, auto off, fire detection, and fire suppression to really keep you safe using this machine. I almost forgot the xTool also has this key in the back. So it's a USB that goes in, and as you heard it beep when it came out, the machine will not function unless this is in. So if you were in a situation where you did not want this machine to be used when you were not in the vicinity of it, you can always pull that out. Next, let's look at the software. For software, both of these companies offer a nice, robust, but simple software solution that is great for beginners. We're going to start with the xTool one. This creative space has a repository of just tons of fun projects that you can download. So let's even just, we're going to pick this chessboard. I can click it. You see a whole bunch of different images of it. And I can grab the different files and open it in the xTool software. You'll notice up the top that it says S1 40 watt, but then like this one says P2. And so I can actually run multiple projects on multiple different lasers at the exact same time with this software, which is nice. So we have all of our items here, and we have a layer set up where it shows every single one of our objects, and we can also do it with layers here that are color coded as well, and we can set different attributes for each layer. So, you know, robust. It's doing what it needs to do. We have a whole bunch of graphical inputs. We have an AI, and then we have a applications thing where you can add in a whole bunch of different fun things like doing a material test array or smart fill or a QR code or stuff like that. The application also allows us to select from a huge array of materials on here. xTool sells a lot of these materials as well, but let's say we wanted to do oak plywood for this project. We then select our machine, our power setting, what we're trying to do, and it gives us a visual representation of what it should look like. We can click it and then use that in the application that we're working on right now. You can also pick it locally in here as well. The last thing to point out on this one is the different modes. So you can process on a base plate, which is the flat base of the unit. So think about doing a flat object. We can use the rotary for a cylindrical engraving. We can do a curved process, which means to 3D map the bed, and I'll come back to that in a second. The conveyor feeder, so when we feed objects through, and then screen print. I actually haven't gotten to use this yet, which is why I haven't mentioned it in the video, but they did come out with a way to make t-shirts with inks by lasering a screen on here first and then using that screen to do the process on the shirt, which is pretty cool. So in a curved process, I'm actually just going to pull up a video because I think that's easier to describe here. What it does is it 3D maps the space by using the probe over and over in a grid fashion. So it creates a 3D rendering of your plate in this example. And then what you can do is engrave on it, and it's going to engrave over this curved surface, which normally you can't do this on any other machine. It's just going to go back and forth, but this enables it to go back and forth up and down at the exact same time. So that is a unique thing to this xTool S1, which is pretty cool. Let's move over to looking at the Wecreat Make It. So over here we have another repository, just like we saw over on the xTool one. I click on this project, and this one's free, so I'm going to click Make It. So inside the Wecreat Make It space, it's very similar to the xTools. We have all these different canvases at the bottom with our project in here, color coding for all of our layers. We again have graphical AI, we even a cool jigsaw puzzle thing over here. Currently we have a flatbed and a cylindrical style, which is for the rotary with this. It's currently missing the conveyor, but I assume that's going to be introduced in the software once that product actually ships, which won't be until next month. Now, if I actually click on something in here, like, oh, I gotta get the arrow tool. If I click on something and I say I'm gonna fill engrave, just like over in the xTool software, you see a rendering of what our options are. And if I click it, it will set the settings over here for our items. Just a reminder though, with any laser, these are baseline general guides, and you should always run an array. So you go up to array and you click material testing. So test your materials before you actually start to do a project, just to make sure that you have the right settings. So this next one's an interesting one, and maybe one you haven't thought of. The communities around these machines. So both of these companies offer technical support. Their technical support is good on both sides. Both technical supports are based out of China, so you might have a time delay if you're here in the United States as to when you can ask questions or when you're going to get your answers and whatnot. The thing that's interesting is the online social groups around these machines. xTool is a company that's been around for quite a while. So between all the different 40, 50 plus Facebook groups that xTool has, you have over 350,000 members in those groups. Why that's important is you can go on with a question, and there are people skilled that will be able to give you an answer. I'm always in these types of groups in both companies, you know, sharing answers whenever I can and sharing thoughts and things like that. The Wecreat Vision is a much newer product, and so their group is much smaller at 9,900. I looked up both right before I did this video, so it's as of the date of this video, of course. You know, I didn't know if I wanted to do any sort of rating on it, but it is something that really helps. Honestly, if I have a question, I go to these groups before I go to technical support. Because as we know, when we use these types of lasers, both pieces of software on any laser, the software gives you recommendations for settings that you should be using, but depending on the material that you're using, it might be slightly different from what somebody else is using. You might be in a different atmospheric environment. Maybe you live up in the mountains, or you live in the desert, or you live in Florida where it's super humid. These things actually affect the ability of the laser to work. So all of these settings that the software provides are really baseline suggestions, and then you should always be doing a test grid to then test what works out best for you in your environment. But these social groups have people that are doing really great skilled stuff, and they might be able to point you in the direction a little bit easier and faster. and even dealing with some really cool projects that I've never even thought of before. So these social groups are great to get into as well. So even when you're looking to buy a machine like this, go join these types of groups and talk to the people in these groups, because you know, they might give you some different feedback as far as what they love and they hate about these machines. They might have owned different ones from different companies and have a good comparative perspective on it. All right, we're going to slow it down now and do some tests on ultimately what should be some of the most important considerations when looking at these types of lasers. We are going to look at how precise we are factoring in the height of our material in focus. We are going to look at material placement, which if you've ever owned one of the cheap open gantry lasers, these machines have wonderful ways to locate and position your materials. And then lastly, we're going to look at precision. Will this machine produce the results that you design on the computer? Will it engrave in the spot that you tell it to engrave to? This is super important. So we're going to run some tests on these three categories, and then we're going to talk about price. Let's look at material positioning and focusing on both of these machines. This is a big difference from your cheap open gantry laser engravers. For material positioning, you got to hope that you put it in the right spot that's represented on the computer, and you typically are physically unscrewing the laser, moving it down. Maybe you have to put a piece of plexiglass or some sort of spacer and then hand tighten it again for the focus. On both of these machines, this is a much more automated process. For the Wecreat Vision, I place my material down on the bed of the laser. Inside the software, I put in a rectangle, but this is a hexagon. This is left over from my last engraving. So I'm going to hit refresh, and using its camera system, it is going to refresh the image and show you that now I have a rectangle here. So that was step one. This is a visual representation. Cameras are great in that way that you see exactly what you're doing. So you can then take exactly what you're going to put and put it where you want it on the picture. Pretty easy. Now that I have this on top of my material, I will go to autofocus. And you'll see that the machine is raising up because it was in a lower state. It always goes back up to top first. If you first turn on the machine, it will already be at this position. The laser head moves over, and then it uses a red laser dot to measure the distance using this laser. Now that it's at the proper engraving height, the laser has now moved back to its standard position, and it refreshes the image on the screen here inside the software. We can then go ahead and hit start, and it will allow us to engrave what we have on the image here, and it gives you again a visual representation of what you're going to be doing. I want to demonstrate this autofocus issue that I mentioned before that elongates time. So we have this item right here. I'm just going to hit start. I'm going to engrave it. Actually, I'm going to make it really small. You won't. Okay. So I have a little dot that I'm going to engrave on here. Hit start. It's going to take 9 seconds. Go ahead. There we go. After it's all finished engraving that, it's going to raise itself all the way back up. Okay, so now it's finishing its processing. It is complete. You can hear that ultra loud fan right now going, but whatever about the fan. These machines are noisy. Now, let's just say I go in here and I add a second circle. So we've already done this circle, and now I'm going to add another circle on another layer, and it is, you know, a couple inches to the left from where the previous one was. I have not taken the material out of the unit. I have not changed anything. I have not changed the position of it. I would now like to go ahead and engrave again. You haven't initiated autofocus yet. Please autofocus. I shouldn't need to because it was already at the correct spot. I should have a button that would allow me to just run with what I had last time. You already know this setting, but let's go ahead. We're going to autofocus again. Right, that took 21 seconds. I was watching the clock on my phone there. So every single time I have to do this, every single time. Plus the time that it was after the engraving was done where it wanted to go back up to the top. So overall, it might add 30, 40 seconds every time I'm trying to do a production run. And that is a waste of time, honestly. So Wecreat, this is definitely a software, easy fix thing. I really hope that you will just give me an extra button here so I don't have to go through this extra process if I haven't changed anything. My wood is still there. It's still the exact same piece. It's at the exact same height. On the xTool S1, to mark where our material is. Now this is different from the camera, which just visually showed it. We have to place it in on the machine. So this laser is being tracked by that red plus on the software, and you'll see that it projects a red laser plus onto the work surface. In the software, we go to Start Mark. It asks you what type of shape it is. So a rectangle only requires 2 marking points, a circle 3, and a polygon you can put as many as you want to create a complex project. I'm going to go to rectangle, hit Start Marking. I just move the laser to the top left corner, and I hit this button on the front of the machine to mark the position. And then I move this to the bottom right to mark the other position. In the software, I hit End Marking, and done. I've drawn a circle on my outlined rectangle here, and now I'm going to physically move the laser directly over that material, and I'm going to click the distance measurement button. It lowers its probe. The probe goes down and physically touches the material so it knows exactly where it is. It then resets the probe, and we're ready to go. At this point, I can go down to Process and actually engrave this circle on top of that wood. I did want to mention this functionality on the S1. You know, if you have multiple items that you wanted to do in a batch process, it's obviously easier with a camera. You know, the camera on the Wecreat will show all of these, and you can design directly on top of all of these images. On this machine, what you would need to do is either plot each one of these out individually, just like this. It would not take that long, but admittedly it takes longer than a camera does. Or xTool has a beta feature. So this is not fully sussed out yet, but they have a beta feature where you're able to take a picture of this with your cell phone. It will place it in on the software, and then you can go from there. I'm not going to focus on that for this video, but I did want to mention that that is something that's in the pipeline for this machine. I now want to, though, look at precision. This is the most important part. So regardless if it's easier or harder to map out where your material is, will it actually engrave correctly on that material? To test accuracy on both machines, what I am doing is a 15-point test. And so I'm using these. These are matchsticks, super thin little pieces of wood. All right, I've changed the test a little bit. I have my 15 points. I have them all super glued down onto plywood. That way they don't move when the airflow goes over them, because that's what was happening when I was doing my first test. This way also, if it misses, we're going to see where it engraves, you know, all around it. So it'll give us an idea of where a drift might be if that is the case. I used the words high or word high, and I used 7-point typeface Lato. So I'm going to use the exact same settings on both machines, and we'll see how it comes out. All right, so here we are. We have finished. I'm gonna go immediately through so that you can see on every single one here. See if we can zoom from back here. Here we go. Hi. Okay, that's how we're gonna have to do it. We got high there. We got exactly on the money on every single one of these. Oh, that one has the slightest bit off. See if any others do. Nope. So we'll either make a note of that, or it's the possibility that I just have my typeface a little bit off on that. But overall, every single one of these engraved, it was a success. It was exactly as we had it on the computer. All right, we're in the Wecreat, and I have completed everything. As you can see, I'm doing Lato 7, and I have it going at 16, 34, and 100 in xTool. And inside here, I have it going at 16, 34, and 100. I do want to point out that in this space, you can see on the camera, this letter is way bigger than my matchstick. So we're going to run this test, and then should it be much bigger, for whatever reason in the software, I will shrink it down and we'll run the test again, because I want to make sure that, I obviously, when I'm designing something with a camera right here, I wouldn't make something larger than what it visibly looks like it should be on. But I do want to keep my test the exact same for right now, so let's run it this way. And if it does turn out to be too big, I will run it again. So we're going to first autofocus. Now it should be autofocusing on one of my letters. It is not. It is missing the toothpick right now, and it is getting it on the actual board behind it. So I've literally now cut them from the screen, so I only have that one in the center for it to autofocus on. Go to the middle one, please. There we go. Did you make it? Yes. It looks like we are directly on top of it, on the one in the center. So as you can see on the top left, we completely missed the matchstick and the letters are gigantic. And at the top one, we've mostly missed it. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this process right now. Let's open it up. I'm not going to touch anything. I just wanted you to see. We completely missed it, and the size is huge compared to what it is. So I'm going to close this back up. I'm now going to resize the word high. Okay, we are completely realigned again. So let's go ahead and run this test for the last time. I'm going to click start. We're sending it to the machine. Okay, so we've completed the processing. Fan's still running. And here are the results. So the high is, let's use a pen here, I guess. So the high is to the side, completely missing. So it's below and to the left. The next top middle one is just straight up below. Top right corner does partially make it onto, top right corner does partially make it on, half off, but it's also illegible for some reason. Next we're towards the, here, you know what, I'll zoom out every time. So right here, we're a little bit on, but we are mostly off. This top one, again, off. So for all 5 on this top row, we are low below the matchstick. And when we go to the center line, we're on. In the absolute center toothpick, we're on with just a little low. And the center toothpick to the right, we're mostly on again. Then we move to the row that's below the middle, and you can tell now this one is offset to the top side of the matchstick. This one's pretty much on. Then as we go to the bottom, we're way above the matchstick. Above the matchstick. On the matchstick, but weirdly illegible and kind of just, that one's a little bit weird. But basically, on a majority of these, we did not engrave where we intended to. And in a lot of places it was just slightly off, but some places it was way off, particularly on the left side. So when we're looking at like the top, where, you know, there's a good gap between the, there's a pretty good gap right here. As well as down at the bottom one, big gap as well. So our accuracy test. Ultimately, this is the performance of your machine. This is the most important metric over everything. If you have a machine that is not accurate, it can cause you some big problems. So with the xTool S1, we have high accuracy. It doesn't have a pretty interface in that you're drawing directly over a photo, but you are drawing directly over a graphical representation of whatever you are putting there. So, you know, if you're putting in a cutting board, you will have a rectangular shape right there of the cutting board, and you'll know exactly where you're placing everything, and it's going to come out that way. So, highly precise. On the Vision, I already knew that this was going to be the result in this because I've already reviewed this before, and I mentioned it in my last review of this one. My rep over at the company acknowledges that this is a known issue and they are working on it. And other YouTubers have mentioned it, although much lightlier than I have here. You know, there's always that thing where you're given something, so maybe you tamper down your reactions to stuff. For me, this is a big issue. It really is. Cameras can work. I have other lasers here that utilize cameras and they work perfectly, just as well as this. Unfortunately, this system does not have their camera system down correctly. It is a fisheye lens, and so it's perfectly focused directly straight down in the middle, and that's why we saw in the middle our results were pretty good. But it curves, and so as you get to the perimeter side, the ones at the top, the letters were below, and the ones at the bottom, the letters were above, and even on the ones, you know, they kind of came in. So it's the camera. They need to add a second camera in here, or they need to do some sort of software fix. Honestly, it still works though. If people bought this and they couldn't use it at all, You know, there'd be rioting in the streets and no one would have one of these. So you still can use this. Can you, or you can put in a full board, cut something out and engrave on the inside, that will be fine. If you put small to medium items in the middle of this, it will be fine. But where you will definitely encounter an issue is if you try to do batch processing with a lot of stuff in here. I make business cards out of wood for myself when I go to things. I was going to Vegas for the National Hardware Show. I did a video on that. It's got a couple 100,000 views already, so check it out. It's cool stuff. But I make wooden business cards for myself to hand out to people. And when I used it in here, I put 30 of these cards in. 15 of them were unusable because they were offset, or my telephone number that's hidden by the tape here was actually cut off at the top because it shifted it up and over. If it's a business card, the whole purpose is for me to impress the person, and if it doesn't look good, that's not going to happen. So I wasted all of those. So yes, I could run a batch process. Instead of running 30, I could put just 15 clustered in the center. So cool. Also, I'm sure you can play around with jigs and work it until you get it to where it's exactly where you want it to be. Cool. You know, that works too. But the benefit of a camera is that it's supposed to give you a perfect image of what you're doing and go exactly where it's going. And if you have to do all the old tricks that you would use on your old style open gantry laser that doesn't have any of these positioning things, well, that's no good. So, you know, big negative for me. Finally, let's talk about price, because for a lot of people, that's, you know, a determiner on what they can afford to purchase. You want to get the best laser engraver you can for the amount of money that you have budgeted to spend. Both of these companies have a lot of different options as far as power levels, accessories. They do package deals for stuff, and all of the different laser companies also do a lot of different discount sales. So prices change a lot. So I'm making the prices as of today, and I'll try and break those down too. The xTool S1 has the cheapest model of the two, which is their 10-watt model. That comes in at a price tag of $849. But remember, I said that the riser is a must-buy for the S1 line, in my opinion, and so that would take the price up to $1,048. Once we get up to 20 watts, both have a 20-watt model. The Wecreat is the cheaper at $1,199, and the xTool is at $1,699 or $1,898 with the riser. So we're looking at a $500 to $700 difference here before discounts. And then at the 40-watt level, the Wecreat is cheaper again at $1,599, with the xTool being at $2,299 or $2,498 with the riser. So that's the base prices, but now we need to look at the discounts. Unfortunately, the discounts don't apply to everybody all the time, and that's the complicated thing. So on Wecreat's website, if you've never purchased from them before, you can sign up with your email for a $100 off code for your first purchase of a Vision specifically. On xTool, they have a big discount right now for people who already own some sort of either laser engraver or vinyl cutter, like Cricut or Cricut, however you pronounce that one. The deal is called a trade-in, but you actually don't have to trade in anything. All you have to do is show proof of purchase that you have purchased another type of machine, and they will give you $400 off an S1. $500 off a P2, but we're talking about the S1 in this video, so $400. If you have one of those vinyl cutters, they will give you $200 off of the S1. So that actually mitigates a lot of that price difference between these two, but again, that's not available to everybody. It's only available to people who are already in the laser space and are looking to upgrade to an xTool S1. So, you know, interesting things there. xTool has some options that are cheaper. Overall, I would say that Wecreat generally is less expensive on the comparable models. But again, you know, there are some differences here, and there is a big negative with that camera system on the Wecreat. Okay, so my final thoughts on these. The report card came back. The xTool S1 is definitely the winner. If you're looking at diode lasers, definitely consider an enclosed class 1 machine. Safety is important. you don't goof around with a table saw or you lose your fingers. If you goof around with a laser, you lose your vision. So an enclosed laser is very, very important. These machines are at the top of their game in the laser diode space. They have all the bells and whistles. Software that's included is great, especially if you're just learning how to use these. But material positioning, super important and absent in 99% of the open gantry lasers. Being able to precisely put things on here, map it onto the computer so that you know when you're going to engrave something, it goes onto that toothpick, that matchstick inside here. That's awesome. That's what you need. That's what you want. And that brings us over to this camera that around the 25% exterior part of this machine is not accurate. So that is a huge, that moves this farther into the lead than the numbers might indicate. I trust this machine fully. I have reservations when using this machine. To be 1000% honest with you, I have 5 lasers in this shop. I've owned this laser for 3 months. I have not used it in 2 months. Because when I come out here, pretty much every day, my wife's a teacher, she'll give me a honey-do list thing like, hey, I need 2 penguins. Got it. Okay, I'll go make 2 penguins for you. I rotate between my machines just so I'm playing with all my toys. But I don't touch this one because I'm not confident that it's always going to be accurate, and I'm just going to waste my time and then have to go back over to this machine and make it over here. So let's just make it over there the first time. I was offered to review the 40-watt model that came out last week, and so I asked, did you fix the camera issue? The response was, it's a very serious issue and we're aware of it, but we're working on it. I don't know why you'd put out another model of your machine when you know there's an issue and you haven't fixed it first. So I am anxiously awaiting a fixed version of the Wecreat Vision because it is a very decent model that has come out at the top tier of the diode laser space earlier in this year. This is the only model they have. Like xTool has like 6 machines. So they've been around for years. So this was a cool first foray into it. I'm very excited to see what they come up with next, but definitely my trust is with this machine over here. I hope you got a lot of good content out of this video. If you did, I hope you'll like and subscribe. I was open and honest with you. I might not get another one of these because of how honest I was with you, but you know, it's the truth. So you need to know what the truth is on these things. I'll see you in the next video.